Every morning at exactly 6:45 a.m., the same old man sat alone on a wooden bench inside Maplewood Park feeding birds with pieces of bread from a paper bag. Rain or sunshine, he never missed a day. Joggers passed him. Dog walkers nodded politely. Children played nearby. But nobody truly knew him. Most people simply called him the Birdman. He rarely spoke. He always wore the same brown coat. And every morning, after feeding the birds, he stared quietly at the empty playground across the park for a very long time. Then he left. Nobody understood why. But hidden inside the old man's coat pocket was a faded photograph that explained everything. His name was Arthur Bennett. And 20 years earlier, he had lost the only person he ever truly loved. One cold autumn morning, 10-year-old Noah arrived at the park with his grandmother before school. While she exercised nearby, Noah noticed the old man sitting silently surrounded by birds. Unlike most children, Noah was curious instead of afraid. Slowly, he walked toward the bench. "Why do the birds like you so much?" he asked. Arthur looked surprised. Then a faint smile appeared on his tired face. "Because I feed them every day." Noah sat beside him carefully. "That's boring." Arthur laughed softly for the first time in weeks. "Well, honesty is important." From that morning onward, Noah began visiting Arthur almost daily. Sometimes before school. Sometimes in the evening. The old man slowly became less lonely. And Noah became fascinated by him. Arthur told incredible stories about history, travel, books, and life lessons that felt wiser than anything Noah learned in school. But one topic Arthur always avoided: family. Whenever Noah asked if he had children or grandchildren, Arthur's smile disappeared instantly. One evening, Noah finally noticed the faded photograph inside Arthur's coat pocket. A little girl around 7 years old smiled brightly while holding a red balloon. "Who is she?" Noah asked gently. Arthur stared at the photo silently. Then he whispered, "My daughter." For several moments, neither spoke. Finally Noah asked quietly, "Where is she now?" Arthur looked toward the empty playground. "I don't know." That answer confused Noah deeply. Over time, Arthur slowly revealed his story. Years earlier, Arthur had been a successful architect in the city. He lived in a beautiful home with his wife Eleanor and their daughter Lily. Lily was full of energy and laughter. Every weekend, Arthur brought her to Maplewood Park. They fed birds together, played on swings, shared ice cream near the lake. Arthur believed those days would last forever. But life changed suddenly after Eleanor died from illness. Grief consumed Arthur completely. He buried himself in work, ignored his emotions, stopped paying attention to Lily's pain. As years passed, distance grew between them. Arguments became common. Lily felt abandoned emotionally by the father who once adored her. Then one terrible night, after a massive argument, 16-year-old Lily packed her bags. "You care more about buildings than people," she shouted through tears. Arthur yelled back angrily, "Fine. Leave if you want." The words escaped in anger, but they destroyed everything. Lily walked out the door, and never returned. At first, Arthur believed she would come back after calming down. But days became months. Months became years. Arthur searched everywhere. Friends, schools, social media, private investigators. Nothing. It was as if Lily vanished completely. And every single day afterward, Arthur regretted the last words he ever said to her. That guilt slowly destroyed him. He retired early, sold his large house, stopped speaking to most people. Only one habit remained: visiting Maplewood Park every morning, because it was the last place where he remembered feeling truly happy with Lily. When Noah heard the story, his eyes filled with tears. "You never found her?" Arthur shook his head slowly. "No. But you still wait." Arthur smiled sadly. When you love someone deeply, part of you never stops waiting. That sentence stayed inside Noah's heart. Weeks later, Noah told his grandmother about Arthur. She listened carefully before suddenly freezing. "Arthur Bennett?" she asked quietly. Noah nodded. His grandmother looked shocked. Years earlier, she had actually known Lily. As teenagers, their families lived in the same neighborhood. She was very kind, Noah's grandmother whispered. Then her expression changed. I heard something long ago, but I'm not sure. The next day, she searched through old boxes in her attic. Hours later, she discovered an old Christmas card. Inside was an address from another state signed by Lily nearly 15 years earlier. Excitement filled Noah immediately. We have to tell Arthur. But his grandmother hesitated. What if it leads nowhere? Still, Noah insisted. The following morning, they showed Arthur the address. His hands trembled while reading it. For the first time in years, hope appeared inside his eyes. Days later, Arthur traveled to the address alone. The journey terrified him. What if Lily hated him? What if she refused to see him? What if he was too late? By evening, Arthur finally reached a quiet neighborhood in another state. Small houses lined peaceful streets. Children rode bicycles nearby. Arthur stood frozen outside the address for several minutes before finally knocking. Footsteps approached slowly from inside. The door opened, and Arthur stopped breathing. A woman stood there staring at him in complete shock. Older now, tired eyes, but unmistakably Lily. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Lily whispered, "Dad." Arthur's eyes filled with tears instantly. "I'm sorry," he whispered shakily. Lily stared at him silently. Years of pain filled the space between them. Then suddenly, a little girl appeared behind Lily holding a stuffed rabbit. "Mommy, who is it?" Arthur looked at the child in shock. Lily swallowed hard. "This is your grandfather." Arthur nearly collapsed emotionally. He had a granddaughter. For years, Lily struggled alone after leaving home. She worked small jobs, lived in cheap apartments, eventually became a nurse. Deep inside, anger toward Arthur remained for a long time. But so did love. She often thought about contacting him. Yet pride and pain always stopped her. Now, after all these years, both stood face to face again. Finally, Lily stepped forward slowly and hugged him tightly. Arthur broke down crying completely. "I thought I lost you forever," he whispered. Lily cried too. "You almost did." That night, they talked for hours. About grief, regret, loneliness, forgiveness. Arthur finally admitted something he had hidden for years. "After your mother died, I stopped knowing how to live." Lily held his hand quietly. "I know." Sometimes healing begins the moment honesty finally replaces silence. Months passed. Arthur returned to Maplewood Park eventually. But this time, he wasn't alone. Lily and her daughter Emma visited often. For the first time in decades, laughter returned to Arthur's life. Emma loved feeding birds just like her mother once did. One morning while sitting on the old bench, Emma asked innocently, "Grandpa, why do birds always come back?" Arthur smiled warmly. "Because they remember where love exists." Noah continued visiting Arthur too. The old man who once sat alone in silence now smiled constantly. People across the park noticed the difference. The birdman no longer looked lonely. One afternoon, Noah asked Arthur something important. "Do you think people deserve second chances?" Arthur looked toward Lily and Emma laughing near the playground. Then he answered softly, "Yes." "Even after years?" Arthur nodded slowly. "Especially after years." As seasons passed, Arthur realized something powerful. Time can create distance. Pride can create silence. Pain can create walls. But love, when it's real, rarely disappears completely. Sometimes it only waits quietly for someone brave enough to return. Years later, after Arthur passed away peacefully in his sleep, the community placed a small memorial bench in Maplewood Park beside the birds he loved feeding every morning. The plaque read, "Never let love leave with angry words." Visitors often stopped to read it silently. Some cried. Some called family members afterward. Some simply sat there thinking about people they missed. And every morning, Lily still visited the park with Emma. Not because of sadness anymore, but because that old wooden bench became proof of something beautiful. That even broken relationships can heal. And sometimes, it's never too late to come home.